will leave the railway in droves. So I don't think we would have got the level of investment we've had over the last 15 years without privatisation. I think the current franchise model discourages private sector investment, and hopefully the reviews that we have over the next few months will find a way of bringing the private sector back in to investing in the rail industry, because we desperately need it.
So how would you structure it if you were in charge?
I think that the big problem in terms of bidding for a rail franchise is you're being asked to take the macroeconomic risk, the GDP risk for 14 years. So you're trying to predict GDP for 14 years when our own Treasury can't predict it for next month. So I think there has to be a rebalance, and that's really saying, no, because when you get a rail franchise, you don't have the flexibility any normal business has. If times get tough, you can take cost out of your business. You can't with a rail franchise. You have to run the service. So 85% of your cost base is fixed. And the single biggest risk we all struggle with is that GDP risk. So my view is the government needs to take a bigger role in the GDP risk and give us more protection, but they need also to encourage the investment in the asset. And we should take risks as businesses on delivering our promises, like new trains, new track, new services. In many ways, the model back in '97 wasn't that far out. So I would advocate a return back to the days of '97 when privatisation worked pretty well, where you're allowed to bid variant bids, you're allowed to put investment in, you can bring the private sector in to fund that, and so forth. And I think that's the way we need to move forward. They got very prescriptive now. And as I say, the single biggest risk we all wrestle with is that GDP risk. And I think that's where the government needs to step up to the plate a bit more on that particular risk. I think some train operators are effectively a monopoly operator, particularly the southern commuter TOCs. I think as an intercity operator, that's not the case. We have real competition. I mean, one of our big successes in the time we've run the franchise is when we took over, we were competing against the air market from Manchester to London, and they had 85% of the market. We had, as a train operator, 15. We've reversed that. We now have 85% of the market and they have 15. And the 15% we don't have are the interliners who are flying from Manchester to Heathrow or Gatwick to fly out of the country. Coach operators are big competitors, and so is the car. So an intercity operator does have real competition. The turnover when we took over the franchise back in '97 was around about just under £200 million. We're now touching £1 billion. So we must have taken those passengers from somewhere. So we do have competition on an intercity line. And I know if we could invest more in track improvements, we could grow that £1 billion turnover by modal shift, by taking people out of cars. For example, if we could get the Birmingham-Manchester services back off across country, if we could take 20 minutes off the journey time, we could take 60% of the road usage off the motorways. So there's real opportunity to grow the business, and that says we must have competition. And clearly, the customer service is vital in that business model, because people do value what they get. So great customer service with the right journey time and the right frequency of journey can drive modal shift. If we get it wrong and performance falls or customer service falls, people will go back in their cars, will go back on the coaches and go back in the aeroplanes. So some franchises like West Coast, like East Coast, do have real competitive pressures. As season ticket wise, our business has less than 10% of our passengers have a season ticket. Something like South West Trains, for example, commuter TOC in London, it's more like 80% is season ticket. So there's a lot of discretionary travel that we have to keep happy. It is, and you know, it is the law of big numbers now. If you know, £1 billion turnover, if you have a 5% movement in, we know, for example, through our modelling technique, if the performance of our services, we call it the public performance ratio, the PPM, if it falls below 88% of trains arriving within 10 minutes of the published arrival time, we start to lose revenue. And what drives revenue away more is what we call the bad days. So if you have a day at 60% because there's a tree on the line, for example, or the overhead wires have come down, you can model that where people will not travel. And to lose a passenger because of a bad experience, on average, it would take us 2 years to get that passenger back. So there's real pressure on the passengers that way. The honest answer, I don't know, because you know, I don't have a lot to do with Virgin Care. I think they call themselves now. I think it is a growing part of the Virgin business now, and I think they have big aspirations. But what they're finding, it is very difficult. A bit like we found when we took over a British Rail business, getting involved in the NHS is a similar sort of challenge. Hence, they've learnt a lesson from us because we learned it the hard way. So the honest answer is, I don't know. I don't have a lot of inside knowledge of what Virgin Care is up to. So I can't really pass a comment on that. I think we do have a real example of that, because when we failed to win the cross-country franchise again, failed to retain that, we've done a lot of work with the cross-country franchise and the cross-country staff in a very, you know, in the same way as I've described here. And it was a very short period of time before the business went back into a command and control type structure. So it is a fact, is you never stop working with your frontline teams, developing them, talking to them. And we don't always get it right. We don't always get the right managers in the right leaders in the right space. But I think you never stop finding ways of developing your staff and refreshing that activity. Because if you do get a command and control style leader, as I think happened with cross country, it's that progress, that ground you've won with those talented people is quickly lost. And I think as a leader of a business that has a customer service angle to it, it's so important you don't lose that edge. But it's hard work. It's not an easy way of leading, but it's a very profitable way. That's why I always say to people, it's very good business. It's hard work, but it's good business. Thank you.